everyone, Mandy here. So I am here with Bridgeport Speedway's General Manager, Danny Serano. And what we're gonna do for you guys today is explain exactly what handicapping is. Now, handicapping, typically, we have at your regular weekly points racing tracks. So with that being said, we're gonna sit down with Danny and he's gonna give us a little 101 on handicapping.
What we do here at Bridgeport is last 3 weeks money earned. I have the pay structure, pay scale from first to last. It gets a little tricky. One of the things about if you do it by money earned is usually positions 13th on back or somewhere around there are the same money. So there can become some ties, but they're far in between. So we go by 3 weeks money earned. Highest guy, the guy with the most money, he starts last in his heat of those who have a handicap. So for tonight, for example, there's probably about 7 or 8 guys here that don't have a handicap, that either haven't raced all year or they're running New Egypt or wherever. So those guys just fall in the back of the heats after the highest handicap guy, and it's just based on how they come and sign in. So, for example, I did the handicapping last night, and the highest money earned for the last 3 weeks was Ryan Watt in the big blocks. Your father, Billy, was second. It's usually whoever wins a race because it's very top heavy. The win carries a lot of weight. The guy with the least amount of money, he starts up front. And what tracks used to do back in the day is if you missed a week, they would credit you with a win. But as we all know, times change and it gets harder and harder to come to the racetrack. So I don't do that whether I worked at New Egypt or here. If you've given me 3 weeks in a row, I freeze your handicap. So you'll go on your last 3 weeks while everybody's going on their last 3 weeks. That's if you give me 3 in a row. If you miss a week, like let's say you come 2 weeks and then you miss a week, I give you third place money. So it doesn't really screw you to the back, where it gives you incentive to still want to come. Otherwise, if a guy misses a week and then he misses another week later on, a couple weeks later, we don't want him to start last and just be discouraged to even come back. So we penalize him with a third, but we don't give him a win. So, for example, if a new guy comes in the middle of the season, he'll start in the rear the first 2 weeks. And then the third week he comes, I give him a third place for the week he has missed. So he'll have a third place money, and then the other two, wherever he finished, the other 2 places money. Now some tracks go on points. It's funny because people come up and go, oh, so-and-so's second in points, so he's starting in the rear. That doesn't mean anything. It goes by money earned, at least at our track and most tracks. Points can be deceptive because people can manipulate the system. And then like guys will go out and win races and then they'll just fall back. But if you do that with money earned, it kind of makes you start in the rear. I'm in favor of it. I grew up, going to Flemington, going East Windsor, and nothing was more awesome and just breathtaking to watch than watching Billy Pouch or Doug Hoffman or Kenny Brightbow or Jimmy Horton come from 15, 16, 17, 18. You go to touring series and they do time trials and start up front and that kind of stuff. There's usually, the fastest guy starts up front and usually like World of Outlaws. Can you imagine, like they say how many wins Steve Kinzer has? Can you imagine if Brett Hearn or Billy Pouch got to start up front after time trials? They'd have 2,000 wins. Mm-hmm. They would.
Now, what can you say would be, for weekly tracks that do handicapping, the benefits towards the drivers?
The benefits towards the drivers, well, I guess it depends how you look at it. So the better, I don't want to say the better drivers, but the drivers that are faster, they're obviously going to start in the back. It's been that way forever.
So not so much benefit for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you take a guy, to put it this way, you take a guy, a low buck guy, And if he comes here and it's a draw, he could draw a really bad number starting the back of the stacked heat, and he's wondering why he even came here. Whereas in a handicap, he's earned that right to start up front, whether it's because his equipment's inferior, or he just had a string of bad luck. He's actually earned that right to start up front, and that's why handicapping, I think, is creative, and it makes for interesting racing because you always have the best of the guys coming from the back. For example, the last time we raced here, when Billy Sr. won, we handicapped, we had 2 heats, and we handicapped 14 cars, the top 7 of each heat. And the guys, we had somebody, I think it was Rusty Smith, came, and he didn't have a handicap, so he started 14th. So you had the top 5 finishers from that night were the worst 5 handicap cars. So it proves that the cream still rises to the top. The track's good enough you can pass, because that night it was Billy, Watt, Jimmy Britt, Beamer, and somebody else. It was 5 guys, and they finished 1 through 5, and they started the furthest back that they could have, which I thought was pretty cool. Usually if we have 3 heat races, we'll handicap the top 5 from each heat. So 15 cars, money earned, least to highest, start that way. If we have 2 heats, we usually do 14, 7 each. We do a little less for the crates because they're a little bit less on horsepower, so it's hard to start way in the back. Heat races are lined up by money earned.
Say you don't make it into the handicapping, but you qualify and you run here each week. How does that affect you lining up?
Basically, let's just say we have 3 heats, which it looks like we'll have tonight. The top 5 will be handicapped, and that means so anybody 6 on back. Well, if we need a consi, so 6th place finishers will start 16, 17, 18. Then we run a consi. So heat 1 would be 16, heat 2 would be 17. If we don't need a consi, let's say there's 24 cars. So we just line up the way you finish. So 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, all the way back to 24.
It's heads up, basically.
Yeah, heads up. Okay. Heads up how you finish. So when we first came here in Bridgeport in 2013, we had the quarter mile, and I didn't know about the micros and how they did things, and we had a drivers meeting early in the year, and I guess we talked them into doing a handicapping that they didn't really understand it. They all agreed to it but didn't understand it. So every week nobody understood why they were starting where with the money earned. So we went back to a pill draw, and it just seems that in the micro world everything's a pill draw. And that's fine, that's the way it is. So we've grown accustomed to it. Now there's benefits for the pill draw where a guy can roll in from California and draw the pole, never race here a day in his life, draw the pole in his heat, draw a pole in his feature, and start up front. And that's just how micro racing is. The downfall to it, I guess, is you'll have your point leaders and guys that win a lot of races, they'll be starting up front plenty of times. So they're never handicapped to the back. The only handicap we do on Friday nights for the micro sprints is the winner of last week's race has to start last in the amount of cars we redraw. So in the 600s, if we run 3 heats, we say the top 3 get to redraw. Everybody else lines up heads up. So we'll pull up the 9 cars, and if the winner is from last week is in those 9 cars, he starts 9th. But it only works for 1 week. So if, let's say he doesn't even make the redraw, there's nothing to worry about. All 9 guys redraw, and like I said, you can have the point leader start up front all the time. But it's intriguing for the micro guys because some of them don't have home tracks and they'll just want to wander in, or they want to come there and race on a rain out, and they know they have the opportunity to start up front and they're not going to be started in the rear. Like I know Lanco and Airport are clubs, so you have to be a member to start up front. They handicap you to the back if you qualify through the heat. And I think it's something you can't start better than 10th or 12th, something like that. And that's fine, that's the club rule, so people know that going in.
To add into what you've been explaining, you know, handicapping at weekly tracks is more beneficial, of course, for the guys that commit and are here each and every week. So how hard is it for outsiders to just jump in You never really get to see that unless there's a rain out or.
Well, in the world of weekly handicap, the weekly shows, the Grandviews, the New Egypts, the Delawares, the Bridgeports, wherever, it's always heartwarming to see guys come and at least try to race with us, even though they know they're not going to start better than, say, 15th or 14th. For example, your brother's here today, and I'm glad he's here, but you know, he's going to start towards the back in his heat race. The best he's going to start is maybe 13th or something in the feature, depending on how many other cars who don't have a handicap can qualify. And that's the other thing too is, so tonight Ryan Watt would usually start 15th. If 5 outsiders qualified through the handicap, if they get handicapped, that'll push Ryan all the way to like 10th. So it pushes the guys, it pushes everybody up. So if Richie Pratt was supposed to start 5th, he could literally be on the pole. It depends on how many guys qualify that don't have a handicap.
So with all that being said, what would you say is the main purpose for having weekly points handicapping?
I don't know what the main purpose is other than to create parity, I guess, for lack of better words. You know, put the big dogs in the back. I mean, like I said, growing up, that's how it was. I don't know if they did the exact science of 3 weeks money earned, but growing up in the 80s, all the big guys always started in the rear, unless it was a huge race where they drew. And I don't have that answer. I don't know the history behind it, but I wouldn't change it. I deal with it with the micros because that's what they do as a whole industry, and that's fine. But I wouldn't change it as far as the weekly stuff because Ryan Watt, your father, Brett Hearn, these guys can win from 15th, 16th, 17th. They've done it their whole lives, and to see them start 2nd or 3rd in a weekly show, I think would be a snoozer. There wouldn't be that much interest. You know, when you have a big, like a poker series or a Brett Deyo race where it's a draw, you have 15 to 20 really good drivers. So a guy starting 2nd or 3rd with a bunch of wins, it's still not going to be the cakewalk for him. You know, Jeff Strug, if he starts 2nd at Grandview tonight, it's pretty much game over probably. But if, you know, in a poker race and he draws 2nd, he's going to have 15 big dogs breathing down his neck. So as far as weekly stuff, I wouldn't change it. I think money earned is the best way to go. Like I said, some tracks do points, some do an average of points, and we go by money earned here, and I'm happy with that.
So with all of that being said, I have one tip for all of you tracks out there. If you do not have this on your website, it really needs to be up there. Have a graph, a chart, something on your website explaining to the fans and to the drivers how your points work and how your handicapping works, just so they know. You might know, but a regular fan sitting in the stands, I guarantee you, they have no idea how this stuff works. So put it on there, make sure that it's just known so everyone can see it, everyone can understand it, and especially for the drivers that might want to run your track weekly or do run your track and they have a question, have it on your website. I'd like to give a big thank you to Danny Serano. It was very nice of him to be able to take the time to sit down with us and explain to us exactly what handicapping is and how it works. So again, thank you, Danny. Guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you were able to take just a little bit home with you that you did not know already. Hopefully you learned something new. So as usual, thank you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and come back next time.